To find the distance between coordinates, we have to use a distance formula. D equals the square root of x2 minus x1 all squared plus y2 minus y1 all squared. Now, if we name this coordinate 5, 2 as x1, y1 and 12, 7 as x2, y2 and plug it in, we end up with 12 minus 5 squared plus 7 minus 2 squared. Obviously we take the square root of the whole thing. We don't need to finish that off, we've just got to match up with which one it is. Can disregard B and D straight away because of no square root sign. And C obviously has a subtract in the middle, so our correct answer is A. On to the second question. Again, it's another distance formula one. So again, we'll name our points x1, y1 and x2, y2. Write out our formula. D equals the square root of x2 minus x1 all squared plus y2 minus y1 all squared, and plug into that. So x2 minus x1 is going to be 5 subtract negative 3 all squared, and y2 minus y1 will be 4 minus 1 all squared, and start working through that. Remember, we've got subtracting a negative here, so it's the same as adding, so 5 subtract negative 3 ends up in 8, and it's 8 squared. 4 subtract 1 is obviously 3 squared, and again we don't have to finish this off, we just have to check which solution it matches to, and it's C. This question is from an old higher multi-choice paper. Again, so here are two statements about the points 2, 3 and 5, negative 1. The length is 5 units, the gradient is 4 over 3, which of the following is true? So first of all we'll have to work out the length, and again we'll use the distance formula. So if we name these coordinates x1, y1 and x2, y2. Now it doesn't matter which name you give to either coordinate, as long as you've got the x1 and y1 together and the x2 and y2 together. We'll start off by finding the distance. So we'll use the formula again. Wee mistake there. And plugging in. So we end up with 5 subtract 2 all squared plus negative 1 subtract 3 all squared. And if we start to work that out, we end up with 3 squared in here and negative 4 squared here, which gives us the square root of 9 plus 16. Just be careful with squaring that negative. Remember, a negative multiplied by a negative comes out as a positive, which leaves us with root 25 and an answer of 5. So we can see that statement 1 is correct, the distance is 5. We need to check if statement 2 is correct, so we'll calculate the gradient. So gradient is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm just going to erase that silly mistake to make. I'll write that again. x2 minus x1, and plug in our points. So we have -1, subtract 3 over 5, subtract 2, which comes out as -4 over 3. So we can see that statement 2 is incorrect. The gradient is not 4/3, it's -4/3. So just working through this, the answer's B. Only statement 1 is correct. With this one, finding the gradient of a line, first of all we need to get our equation into the form y equals mx plus c, where m is the gradient and c is the y-intercept. So if we take our equation 3x plus 5, y equals 7. I'm going to try and keep the y's on their own, so I will subtract 3x from each side, and that will leave me with 5y equals -3x plus 7. And then I want it in the form y equals mx plus c. We've got 5y, so now I need to divide each side by 5. I'm just going to close my bracket up here. Okay, that then leaves us with y equals -3/5 x plus 7 over 5. And here we can see our gradient is equal to -3/5. So our answer is B. With this one, we're looking for which equation has a negative gradient. Again, we need to get to the form y equals mx plus c. I'm just going to start with equation A. And we've got x plus 3y equals -2. So I need to get the x over to the right hand side just to have y's on their own. So what I'll do is I'll subtract x from each side, and that leaves us with 3y equals -x plus 2. I can get that in the form y equals mx plus c by dividing everything by 3 now, so I get y equals -x over 3 plus 2 over 3, and straight away you can see that's a negative gradient there, so our answer is A. We don't need to work through the rest of them. To read off the gradient and the y-intercept from an equation, first of all we need to put the equation into the form y equals mx plus c. Now this equation just needs a quick rearrangement of the -7x and the +3. So we're just going to write them in the opposite order. From this we can read off that the gradient is -7, and we can see that the value of c is equal to 3. Now we need to write the y-intercept as a coordinate, and I'm just going to make a quick sketch of some coordinate axes. We can see that whenever any straight line crosses the y-axis, the x-coordinate is always 0. So that leaves us with a y-coordinate of 3, and that tells us our answer. Now at higher, to find the equation of a straight line, we use y minus b equals m brackets x minus a, where m is obviously your gradient and a is the x-coordinate of a point on the line and b is the y-coordinate. So we need a point AB that lies on the line. If we look at our question here, straight away we can see that our gradient is 4, and it tells us that we're passing through the point 2, -3, so that would make a equal to 2 and b equal to -3, and then it's a case of just subbing it all in. So we end up with y minus -3 equals 4 brackets x minus 2, and we're just going to tidy that up a bit. So we end up with y plus 3, and multiply out this bracket, so we'll have 4x minus 8, and then to get it into the format y equals mx plus c, if we subtract 3 from each side, we'll end up with y equals 4x minus 11, which is option B. Okay, on to our last question. Which of the following gives the equation of a line that passes through the points 1, -1 and 2, -6? So, first of all, at higher, we use y minus b equals m brackets x minus a to find the equation of a line. So we need a gradient, which we don't have, and we need a point that is on this line. A is the x coordinate of the point, b is the y coordinate of the point. Now we're given 2 points, this one here and this one here. It honestly doesn't matter which one you use. I'm just going to pick the first one because the numbers are nice and easy. So I can write down that A is 1 and B is -1. That just leaves us to find the gradient. We'll use the gradient formula from N5. So gradient equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So -6 take away -1 over 2 minus 1. Just be careful with this, -6 minus -1, that's going to be the same as -6 plus 1 over 2 take away 1, which is obviously 1. So in the top line that comes out as -5 over 1, which is -5. So gradient is equal to -5. Now we've got all the components, we can just plug them into our equation. So y minus b, so y minus -1 equals m, well m's -5, brackets x minus a, so it'll be x minus 1. I multiply it all out, so that becomes y plus 1 equals -5x. Again, be careful, 2 negatives here, which becomes plus 5. Get it in the form y equals mx plus c by subtracting 1 from each side. So we end up with y equals -5x plus 4, which is option C. Okay, so that was the last question of your quiz. Hopefully Mrs. Urban and I going through these solutions is helpful to you guys. If there's anything you're still a bit unsure about, then please let us know.